Alberta is in big trouble, and I mean big trouble. What may come across as right-wing outrage is actually a warning to Albertans as to what could be heading their way in the near future. Let's get into it.
Oh, yeah!
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to The Fringe. If you've lived in Alberta or anywhere near Calgary or even followed social online media over the last decade, you'll have heard of Barney the Purple Dinosaur, or as we like to call him around here, Grimace, or Nawhead Nenshi, or as I like to call him, Nawhead Nen Shit, because that's what he did to Calgary. He crapped all over it, destroyed it, and left it in ruin before handing the torch off to failed woke mayor Jody Gondek. And why are we talking about Nawhead Nenshi here on the channel today? Well, I come here to issue Albertans a warning of what could come to pass. I am the ghost of elections future coming here to warn you of what we could be facing and why we should be very worried about what is going to happen in our next provincial election. Now, before we get into that, I just want to remind everybody that we're very quickly approaching 30,000 subscribers. I'd really love to see us hit that mark before the end of the month. So if this is your first time to the channel, please make sure to hit that subscribe button, click your bell for notifications. Also, if you're already subscribed, double check that you still are. Lately, YouTube has been censoring these kind of videos and they want to make sure that you guys aren't getting them. So they do everything they can to unsubscribe people. I've heard stories of people having to resubscribe bi-daily, meaning 3 or 4 times a week, just to stay subscribed to the channel. So if you're an existing subscriber here on the channel, check your buttons. Make sure you are still subscribed to the channel. Make sure to do all the usual YouTube stuff at the end of this again to get past the censorship bots. Let's like, share, comment, get this out. Help support the channel by doing so, ladies and gentlemen. It costs absolutely nothing but a few seconds of your time. Now let's get on to today's story, because Nawhead Nenshi has done what I predicted he was going to do, and he has announced that he is formally running for Alberta's NDP. Why this is such a big deal? We're going to get into it. But first, let's read his lovely, lovely introductory tweet. Hi, I'm Nawhead Nenshit. I'm running because I destroyed Calgary. I mean, I want to be the leader of Alberta's NDP and the next premier of the province. I can't do this without your support. Visit nenshi.ca to buy a membership and sign up as a supporter. We can do this together for Alberta, for all of us. Now, keep in mind, this is the same former Calgary mayor who basically hates white people. He's made it very clear he is not he's not favorable to white people. If we take a look here, I tweeted out today about Nenshi, of course, sharing Tamara Leach's paper article where I said no amnesty for Nawhead Nenshi. This is where your vote will count, Alberta. You let this pompous asshole run the province and work, and you can work to be poor, or you can vote with common sense. Nenshit is an absolute disgrace and a joke. Now, if we take a look, here's an old article. Calgary Mayor says anti-mask rallies are thinly veiled white nationalist protests. Now, if you remember, Nawhead Nenshi put a motion into place while he was Calgary Mayor, if you were in Calgary, that stopped people from marching downtown and protesting lockdowns during the convoy days. Well, they said that that was an emergency town measure and that was just a temporary thing, just like 2 weeks to flatten the curve. It was going to be something introduced merely to quell for people from infecting one another. And as soon as the pandemic would end, well, they'd reverse course and take that power back, as again, it was an emergency power. Well, now failed woke mayor Jody Gondek took that rule and actually made it a permanent bylaw based on protesting drag time story hours by saying that you're not allowed within 100 meters of a city-owned property to protest against those kind of events. Now, Nawhead Nenshi making his announcement. Let's take a look at his campaign video. I'm going to warn you, I haven't watched this yet because I probably would have thrown up in my mouth. But for you guys here, we'll take a look, and then I'm going to discuss why we should all be very, very concerned about this.
Alberta. I grew up here, on this street in Northeast Calgary. So good to see you again. And just outside of Red Deer. My family were small business people. We lost everything in the 1980s recession.
The nation is in its worst economic crisis in 50 years.
And we had to start again with a little laundromat. Sometimes we were poor. Sometimes we were very poor. But we struggled. We worked hard. And ultimately, we found success here in this place. And we found that success because Alberta believed in us. I graduated from great public schools, including this one. I explored the city on public transit. I haunted the public library. I learned to swim very badly in a public pool. And the public healthcare system was always there for us. These strong public services shaped me, and they helped me build a great Canadian life. That's why, after working for businesses across North America and living around the world, I chose to come home, here to Alberta, to make my life. I worked hard in business, as a professor, and ultimately I was elected 3 times as mayor of Calgary.
And our best days are still ahead.
Serving for 11 years. During that time, Calgary was named the best city in the Western Hemisphere to live, and we kept our residential property taxes the lowest in the country. But things are so hard right now. Life is getting less and less affordable. Our utilities and insurance bills are through the roof. Too many of us don't have a family doctor. We don't know if the ER or the ambulance will be there when we need it. Our kids' classes are getting bigger and bigger. Our summers are filled with forest fire smoke, and all of us feel the impacts of floods and of droughts. What we need now is smart, credible government. We need a government that respects us. We need a government that we can trust. And sadly, we don't have it. Danielle Smith and her government are not only incompetent, they're immoral and they're dangerous. The only things they know how to do are pick fights and waste money. And while they indulge themselves and their friends, life gets harder for all of us. But it doesn't have to be that way. There is a choice, a better choice. Alberta's New Democrats are that alternative, a party based on values we all share, Alberta values. With your help, we can build on the tremendous legacy of Rachel Notley and all of those who have worked hard for this party.
Okay, I'm sorry. I have to stop it right. I can't watch any more of this. The tremendous legacy of Rachel Notley, the sheriff of Nottingham, who overtaxed, overspent, and ran this province into the ground. Now, of course, he's going to throw shade and smack around Danielle Smith and say that she does a poor job. But I'll be honest, we've had Premier Smith here on the channel, and of course, I'll admit freely I voted for her, and I think that she's done a bang-up job ever since she's got the title of Premier. Now, there are things that happen in politics that not everyone is going to agree on. There have been things Danielle Smith has said and done that I don't agree with, but I still believe she's doing a darn fine job as the Premier of Alberta, defending citizens' rights and making sure that when it comes to overtaxation, like Nahid Nenshi talks about in this video, well, she's made sure to protect Albertans as best she can and is going to continue so long as she is Premier. Some of the things that were a key theme in this video, you'll notice he mentioned, I went to school over here. I went to swim at public pools. We had a healthcare system. These are all unions that are tied to QP. That, of course, Rachel Notley's husband was one of the heads of. In fact, he was saying at one point he was going to jump into the race I almost threw up there just thinking about it, for the leadership of the NDP. He was going to take that position, or fight for that position because Rachel Notley was stepping down. So even though there was one conflict of interest in that family, well, why not have two, as Rachel Notley's husband was going to step forward? No word yet that I'm aware of if he has, but of course, Nahid Nenshi coming in on behalf of the unions here. Now, if you think that he's going to tout that Calgary had its lowest property taxes in history, that may be true in terms of what other cities were charging. However, this is the mayor that, like clockwork, every single year would raise taxes roughly 4% in order to gouge Calgarians. He jacked up business taxes to ensure that, well, they were lining their pockets. Nahid Nenshi was a online social media whore who enjoyed every moment that he could get in front of the camera, every moment that he could put out a tweet and try to virtue signal. And there were so many people propping him up during the floods in 2012 in Alberta. And again, I'm not going to say he did a bad job of mitigating those, but of course it was the city workers. Naheed Nenshi, while he was helping to, I guess, delegate where people should be spending their efforts or how the city was going to work together and providing communication between offices, it was the workers. It was the fire departments. It was the police. It was emergency workers on the ground ensuring that things got done, not Naheed Nenshi. So I've said at the beginning of this video that I came with a warning of why this is a big deal. If we look back to the last election between Rachel Notley and Danielle Smith, the province, if you look at the province here, the province is mostly conservative, mostly blue, but a lot of key ridings were Edmonton up here on the top right, and now Calgary down here. Calgary, if you look in the northeast where Naheed Nenshi grew up, you'll notice it's very heavily NDP. Now the reason for that, and people are going to say this is racist, but a lot of the migrants who come to Canada, who are allowed in through the Liberals and the NDP, live in this section of town. A lot of the healthcare workers that work for the unions, that run along those unions, live in this section of town. They saturate this section of town. That's just census documents. That's populace statistics. So it has nothing to do with race. But you'll notice the orange around these key areas. Now, down here in the lower south of Calgary, were very key ridings when we look at Fish Creek, when we look at the Mackenzie District, when we look at the industrial section of Calgary. A lot of those ridings are very huge in terms of ridings for votes. These lower south sections, including Acadia, you'll recall that Tyler Shandro lost his riding right here to the NDP in the last election. And rightfully so. I don't agree with a lot of the practices that Shandro put place during lockdowns under Fat Stalin. I mean, Jason Kenney. But Tyler Shandro lost his seat, and it was by a very thin margin. Now, with Naheed Nenshi throwing his hat in the ring, they're not worried about the province. They're not worried about him getting the vote in the province. What they're worried about is the Calgary vote. Because between Edmonton and Calgary, you can see up here where the seats sat for the NDP. And all they had to do was get these 5 extra seats, and there would have been an NDP government. Sorry, they would have had to get 6 because they would have needed 1 over here on this side. It can't be split down the middle. My apologies. They needed 6 more seats. And if you come into Calgary, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 different ridings that all went conservative. And I'll say right now that about 5 of those major ridings that went conservative were by thin margins, that Danielle Smith won that election. Now, the problem with Naheed Nenshi is when he was mayor of Calgary, the reason he was reelected despite his failures, despite his guffaws of being how do I put this forward? A policy abusing waste. Somebody who took advantage of his kickbacks. He got the Muslim vote. Naheed Nenshi always had the Muslim vote. In fact, I still recall elections in Calgary. I believe it was either his re-election the first time or his third roundabout as mayor, where they had tabulated the votes in this orange section of town, the northeast. And because the populace was so large in this section of town, they had actually called the election in his favor before they had tabulated the votes for the rest of this city and its ridings. Naheed Nenshi took his third or second term based on 1 populist vote. And all of these people are going to vote for him when it comes to being the premier of Alberta. When you look South Calgary, a lot of these ridings that sit with people that were on the fence, and again, people are saying, well, they're blue right now. Again, they were very thin margins. Naheed Nenshi might be the name that needs to be in there in order for those few hundred people in each riding to change their minds on seats in the next race. And the NDP know this as they're voting in their new leader. Now, I always said that when you look at Jim Prentice, when you look at everything that happened with Redford, everything that went on in Alberta was a long-term conservative dynasty. And I think that when Rachel Notley ran for her first term, that she ended up being, or her only term, I should say, where she ended up being the Premier of Alberta, I feel that the only reason she got in was a lot of Albertans were fed up with a conservative dynasty. People were trying to send a message by voting NDP, by saying, well, we'll split the seats a little bit and try to send the Conservatives a message that we're done with the corruption. I know a lot of the unions got involved. There was a lot of heavyset union workers coming in there to vote for Rachel Notley, that they ended up with their majority provincial government, and the only time the NDP have ever been in charge of this province. However, in those 4 years, Rachel Notley overtaxed, overburdened, and ran this province into the ground. She decimated our oil sector. She ruined the lives of many Albertans. And that's the same woman who said she wanted to go door to door poking people who refused to look into medical procedures during the pandemic. This is absurd. And when you go back to Naheed Nenshi saying that anti-mask rallies are thinly veiled white nationalists, is this what you guys want running the province in the next election? Is this who you want as your next premier? I don't think so. While Danielle Smith has done a phenomenal job, and while she has definitely shown that she's worth the title she carries, I think that regardless of whatever she does in the next 2.5 years, will not have any weight when it comes to running against somebody like Naheed Nenshi. And I hope for my sake I'm wrong. But what is going to have to happen at this point when you look at voter turnout, when you look at people who say, again, and I've talked about your right to vote multiple times here on this channel, where people say, my vote doesn't mean anything. If Naheed Nenshi becomes the leader of the NDP, your vote in the next provincial election means everything. It's going to mean the difference between a strong and free Alberta or one that works to be poor, one that is overtaxed, one that Naheed Nenshi talks about, well, you need access to Medicare, you need access to doctors and lower taxes. We will not see those under the NDP. And if anyone in this chat or the comment section can point out any province the NDP have ever been in charge of where those things have improved, please let me know in the comments, because I, for one, have never seen that happen or come to pass. And we all know Naheed Nenshi's track record if you live in Calgary. This man aims to do nothing more than line his pockets, give kickbacks to friends, and, well, literally be the pig at the trough, sucking up Alberta taxpayers' dollars. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. Do you think it's as big as a warning as I'm issuing if Naheed Nenshi hits that leadership role? Do you think that Alberta is in as much trouble as I'm saying? Let me know your comments. I'm interested to hear what you think. I know we have a lot of Alberta viewers here in the community, so drop in your comments. Again, double check that you're subscribed. Join us this Friday on the channel for our live streams, Friday Night Fringe, starting at 6 p.m. Pacific Time, 8 p.m. Central, where we go over everything that's happened this week, everything coming up in the week ahead. And sometimes I do get on some crazy rants, but one great thing that's happening this week, folks, after hitting 25,000 subscribers, of course, I'm doing the One Chip Challenge live on stream this Friday, March 15th. It's going to be great. Going to be a lot of fun. I don't mind suffering at the hands of my viewers' entertainment. So come on out to that stream. Have some fun with us. It's going to be a great show. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and have a great rest of your day. I'll catch you on the next one.